Well, good evening, and welcome. And want to thank you so much for joining me this evening on Dialogue That Matters on the Silver and CDL show. This is the 19th of the first, 2025, this Sunday evening, and we're going to have this discussion regarding the role of the Bribery Act in Jamaica. I'll be joined tonight by Miss Danielle Archer. She's the principal director for the National Integrity Action in Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at a very pivotal point in Jamaica, I would say, a pivotal point in Jamaica, and it is worth for consideration. We stand at a crossroads in Jamaica's fight against corruption. The role of a bribery act in our nation cannot be overstated. One could say it is not merely a piece of legislation, it's a powerful weapon in the hand of the nation in order to clear out any sort of insidious rot that may threaten the very foundation of our society. I want to thank also those who are joining me on Instagram, those who are joining me on Facebook, those who are joining me on TikTok. I just want to say, want to thank you so much for that. Just my just want to make sure that I do that as well. We still have TikTok here in the UK. Let's hope that it remains as is. The current Prevention Act, the current Corruption Prevention Act, while a step in the right direction, has proven insufficient in stemming the tide of corruption that plagues our beautiful island. You know, and as a result of that, the the Comprehensive Bribery Act would go further. It is proposed criminalizing both active and passive bribery in both public and private spheres. It would require businesses operating in Jamaica to implement adequate procedures to prevent bribery, creating a culture of accountability and transparency that extends beyond government offices and into the private sector. But let us be clear, a bribery act is not just about punishment, it's about prevention. It's about creating a society where integrity is valued above personal gain, where public service is seen as a sacred trust rather than an opportunity for self enrichment. By requiring thorough asset declaration and implementing rigorous conflict of interest reviews, we can prevent corruption before it takes root. We must shift our focus from merely criminalizing illicit enrichment to fostering an environment where such behavior is unthinkable. The path ahead is not easy. Implementing and enforcing a bribery act will require political will, resources, and the cooperation of all sectors and society. This reminds me of an article many years ago I penned in the Gleaner, which got lecture of the day. The topic was bankruptcy of the wills, fuel crime. And that was the time when PJ Patterson was the Prime Minister and Peter Phillips was the Minister of National Security and dealing with crime. But the rewards are immeasurable. Imagine a Jamaica where citizens trust their institutions, where foreign investors flock to our shores, confident in the fairness of our system, where our youth see a future built on merit rather than connections and links. This is a Jamaica we can create with a robust bribery act. The time for half measure is over. Let us take this bold step towards a brighter, more transparent future for all Jamaicans. Tonight, I'm joined by Ms. Danielle Archer, Principal Director of National Integrity Action, on our Sunday evening dialogue that matters. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be inviting Ms. Danielle Archer shortly on the show. Well, good evening, Miss Archer. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thanks. Thank you for having me, and good evening, good night, good morning to your listeners, wherever they are.
Well, it's all good night now. You know, we're cold in the UK. Can we get some of that nice sunshine in Jamaica?
I'd send it to you from Manchester, but you wouldn't appreciate it.
Why? Because it's not from Ocherous?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Running banter will continue.
Okay, good, good. Well, listen, it's great having you today, and And one of the reasons why I really wanted to have this discussion with you is because I saw your press release in regards to uh, allegations by a member of an opposition party member regarding some 15 million and some Senate seat and some board seat. And I saw your press release, but your press release sort of set out the need for a bribery act. So I wanted to delve a bit into where is this coming from, and how you can sort of set the stage for us, Danielle. If you please let us know.
Sure. Well, we'll start from the background to the Bribery Act. The having a Bribery Act is one of the deliverables for CMOC. Some time ago, you'd have been hearing about the stakeholder partnership between the government and private sector and NGOs, whereas there has not been much agreement these days with the government. With CMOC, one of the deliverables to making Jamaica a better place is, in fact, the bribery legislation. When I took office as the NIA principal director, it was one of the things that I had wanted to do, which was to support CMAC's call for a anti-bribery legislation. What we sought to do, as you recognize, NIA is in fact, that's National Integrity Action, is in fact an NGO, basically registered as a charity, whereas we don't have an income stream. We rely on project proposals to be able to earn, to be able to put forward public education campaigns. And that's what we did. We crafted a proposal and submitted that proposal to the British, asking them if they would consider providing us with some funds to have a public education campaign surrounding educating the Jamaicans about what bribery is, with the hope that once we've shared this information with our colleagues or Jamaicans or friends, they too would be willing to participate in asking for a bribery legislation. That's really the impetus for it. Now, in real terms, you and I both know that conflict of interest is not a crime in Jamaica.
Mm.
Nepotism isn't a crime. It's viewed as giving your family, it's a reward for being a family member. And cronyism is not a crime either. It's a reward for being a friend. These are
Yeah.
all elements we believe that we would subsume on a comprehensive bribery act, anti-bribery act, that
Mm.
would ensure that what we're really doing is crafting, curating, and controlling the kind of society that we want. And we'll do this recognizing that over 90% of Jamaicans believe, and this is pursuant to an NIA commission poll from Don Anderson, that proved that a majority of Jamaicans, in excess of 90%, believe that corruption was a way of life. And a
Wow.
majority of Jamaicans were asking for public education campaigns and they wanted to be involved on how
Yeah.
to make Jamaica better, how to reduce the impact of corruption. And NIA thought that doing a public education campaign, letting people understand what bribery is, what is the
Mm.
cost of bribery, what's the consequence of bribery, and that bribery isn't just something that involves only public officials, but that you and I can
Mm.
become parties to bribery, wittingly or unwittingly, in our everyday
Yeah.
life, that we can set a foundation and create a standard for the future. And that's really
And
what this campaign is about.
yes, and I'm not sure if you had said it earlier, but according to the Transparency International, uh, can you define bribery in the
Right. So
fullest sense?
it's important because NIA is a chapter of Transparency International.
Okay.
And so whatever activities we promote, we try to make sure that they are to utilizing the definitions provided to us by our parent chapter. And
Mm.
Transparency International defines bribery, and I'm going to read it to you so that you
Yes.
understand the gravamen, the importance of it, and how it's broken apart. It says bribery is the offering, promising, giving, accepting, or soliciting of an advantage as an inducement for an action which is illegal or unethical or a breach of trust.
Mm.
Got that? So you can
Yes.
promise,
Yes.
you can offer, you can give, you can accept, or you can beg it in exchange for you getting an action which is illegal, and we've added unethical, and we have added or a breach of trust. And when I said we've added, it means us. We are taking it on
Mm.
now into our culture to say it is not just what is illegal. Because when we talk about bribery in Jamaica, we tend to say it's just illegal. They're going to ask him to do something wrong. You're going to bribe him to
Yes.
do something, go so. or you're bribing him to do something that otherwise you would not be able to get. We want to put into our culture that it's unethical. We want to
Yes.
put into our culture that it's a breach of trust. And most importantly, we want to put into our culture that bribery can occur between two private individuals. More
Right.
often than not, when we raise this, you hear somebody say, but bribery is already an offense in Jamaica. No, we tend to
Well,
speak of
yeah,
public officials, not
yeah.
between private individuals.
Well, that's a point I'd wanted to bring up in regards to the Corruption Prevention Act. And if I ask this question here, and the question is along the line that how does the where is this, okay, where is this coming from of all these years, and how does the Bribery Act differ from or complement the existing Corruption Prevention Act in Jamaica? Because I understand that I think in our discussion one time it was said that when it was mentioned, like to the government or so, is alluded that we already have this
It's a
in
public,
place.
so the Corruption Prevention Act speaks in
Yeah.
large portion to public officials, which is why when you
Yeah.
talk about people, talk about public officials.
Yes.
The view I'm about
So.
to express is the view of Daniel Archer, not necessarily the shirt I wear, but I
Mm,
think it's important. Laws are meant to control or shape a society.
mm,
There is no point in consistently amending legislation to suit how a society, what a society has changed into. Okay, that's my view. And I say
yes.
that as an attorney. Be
Right.
that as it may, that you have the Corruption Prevention Act that speaks to preventing corruption, particularly among public officials. If we are desirous of having a Jamaica where corruption is not the order of the day, where nepotism is actually a crime, cronyism is criminalized, and conflict of interest is defined and recognized as an act of bribery, we would be in a better place.
Mm,
As it stands, none of those things that I have highlighted to you are criminalized, and they are
yeah.
indeed parts of bribery. And I say that in the context with the greatest of respect, that laws are to be crafted to create the society we want. I'm not expecting that we're going to take your legislation or that in Australia or that of the United States and make it ours. The intention through the public education campaign is to hear what people have to say, give them these definitions, and have them decide whether or not they think it is prudent for Jamaica to have such a law to curb the experiences of corruption in Jamaica.
So if we grab hold of an example the other day, of course we're going to use this as an example, and even though it's a very controversial one
So
in
you're
in the
trying to mix up?
in well, it's in your press release, as I said, in the claim by Mr. Rowe, saying that he was offered 15 million. So we say alleged, offered a Senate seat and a board position in exchange for withdrawing as a considered caretaker, and what, and I urge anyone with information regarding these to share with integrity. And you also say, believe that such allegations affect public trust in political system. Allegations of bribery and corruption erode this trust, making it imperative for implement and enforce anti-bribery laws. Now, I believe, based on my seeing this, I believe that this was like a teaching moment in a sense. And I don't believe that you're saying this is what happened. Am I correct?
You're so right. We're not saying that. And that is why the press release did say if the claims were factual, if it was true.
Yes.
So we're not, you are perfectly right. We're not dipping in on either
Mm,
side. I'm just using the opportunity,
yes.
and NIA is utilizing that chance that it has to say, look, let's have this conversation. We know it happens
Yes.
within the experiences or political landscape, but let's have that conversation. I'm sure you'll recall many moons ago, the director of public prosecutions had mentioned that nepotism isn't a crime.
Mm.
We've had instances where we have cronyism and we've been told it's not a crime. And we've had experiences of conflict of interest where you put your son or your family member who has gotten an advantage, and we say, boys, conflict of interest, but you can't really,
I saw you stay. I said go on. I saw that go on.
yeah, you know, go to court for that. One of the things Jamaicans want to see is that persons are prosecuted for corruption offenses. The way the landscape is at the moment, it's extraordinarily difficult to do that because there are many things such as those things that I have shared with you that are not a crime. Once we've made them criminal, once people have to answer to them, it'll become easier to prosecute them because you can't deny that you have breached something by giving your son or your daughter or your spouse a particular position in a board. And you can't deny that you have put a friend in a position of authority because of your best friend. And you can't deny that you've given your friend a position because he or she may be part of something that you're doing and you want to get an advantage. You see, the sum total of doing all of this is to create a level playing field in Jamaica where you
Yes.
create an opportunity where merit matters, not who you know. And you and I both know
Mm.
that no matter where you go, up on the hill, down in the valley, on the street corner, in the bar, I'm a friend that over there, so so you know how it go. I'm a friend.
Mm.
Yeah. We look at our proverbs. We have past and christening pitney first. You know what that mean? Past and christening pitney first. Yeah. So we hand go packy come. You have to give me something, I me give you something back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining. I'm with Ms. Danielle Archer, Principal Director of the National Integrity Action, and we're discussing the role of a bribery act to fight corruption in Jamaica. One question I just bring in right there. When you say the people of Jamaica, they need the trust, they need the level of trust. Do you believe this affect how people react when it comes on to elections and politics? Because they believe that why not make no sense? These guys just get away with things or so. So therefore, there's a level of apathy that rises more and more if they believe nothing happens.
I agree with that. And it feeds into the narrative that you're not able to do anything because it's only them friends them take care of. It ensures that people understand that only your friends get a particular position, and the narrative, it encourages the narrative that says, in a sense, to participate, yeah, because me and them are no friend and not now go on for me because me not do it. Or I become a party loyalist.
Mm,
I become so much of a staunch supporter of a particular party that I know that when I'm in a power, I'm gonna eat some of the crumbs. Them are gonna remember me. Me go get something from them because that's the only way I can benefit by becoming a party loyalist. So
yes.
it encourages on one side those persons who feel that they have the wherewithal to become party loyalists, and
Mm,
it discourages on the other hand. But I'd also go further and say when we have such a legislation, it also helps to buttress the financing of elections. At this moment, we do have a limited financing of Finance Act, that finance campaign financing act. We have a limited one. Transparency International has spoken out about how we can strengthen that throughout the world. So we're not unique, but we lead the Caribbean by actually having this campaign finance act. But believe it or not, donors aren't responsible to tell us beforehand how much they're contributing to
yes.
the elections. We know this after the election has been called. So all this time when you're lobbying, we technically don't have a lobbying act that restricts the amount of money that is paid to a political party or to a minister or to a ministry. And so having a bribery, a comprehensive legislation, and I keep saying comprehensive because a law is like a suit of clothing. It will not fit, one size does not fit all.
Yes.
Laws to be applicable must be properly tailored to suit the environment in which it's going to operate. And so we would want to craft legislation that makes it very difficult for any act of bribery. And we have the luxury of being able to
Yes.
define in Jamaica what bribery means. You'll agree with me that other jurisdictions have several kinds of laws that they define their terms to be very different.
Mm,
We want to craft a legislation that suits the circumstances here in Jamaica.
So therefore, not to be facetious or anything, but I use the word, it needs an effective jacket that covers.
It want not just a jacket, sir, but you want a proper suit.
Want a proper suit.
You want a
Okay.
proper suit
Want a
because
proper
you
suit.
want to be able not just to implement the legislation, but you want
Yes.
the legislation to be so well adapted to the circumstance that ordinary, regular Jamaicans understand it and are willing to support it. And this will become a difficulty because, as it has been said, it way we do things, how we've done it is a part of life. And so
Mm.
it will also result in a cultural change.
The point you mentioned right there about this cultural change and this massive shift, and over the years of doing certain things, that's going to be some serious work. However, if I ask this question, the Jamaica Corruption Perception Index score, if I'm not mistaken, remains stagnant at 44. You can correct me
Yes,
there. Yeah.
PI will be
Yeah.
releasing the corruption perception index
Yes.
for 2024. So that will also we'll look forward to see what it says about what has happened to Jamaica, whether we continue to tread
Yes.
or whether
Yes.
we fall.
And how do you think this bribery act could help in improving this rating? Do you think this bribery act could help improve
There
this
are two
rating?
ways I think it would be effective. Jamaicans are looking for convictions.
Right.
And one of the
Jamaicans
things
are
I
looking
think
for
the Bribery
conviction.
Act will do is it will set the foundation and perhaps lay out a threshold for the conviction under the legislation for acts of nepotism, conflict of interest, and cronyism. That may very well encourage Jamaicans to feel that something is being done about corruption. It's not just the top that we're focusing on, but it also brings home the different facets to corruption.
Mm,
And if we're able to do that, we would be strengthening the network for corruption, anti-corruption legislation, the framework in Jamaica. Fighting corruption does not occur only by the establishment of the Integrity Commission or having a Corruption Prevention Act. Fighting corruption means that you have different layers of
mm,
or mechanisms through which you can combat corruption. So you're creating a matrix and you're ensuring that you have different areas, different things that will ensure that corruption is not just prevented, but it becomes very hard to encourage any act of corruption. And so the anti-bribery legislation would be one such layer within the framework that would
mm.
be part of a national anti-corruption strategy to ensure that we actually change the culture within Jamaica for the next generation.
Daniel, the Bribery Act and the proposal that you have in mind, and I'm glad Michelle Clark asked this question because it sort of fits in a question. What's a plan that this committee have to start execution of these plans, this legislation?
All right. So Michelle, let's be clear. We
Mm,
don't have the authority to do anything in terms of such as passing the legislation. So we don't have that authority. We're starting at the groundwork, at the basic, at the foundation. We're going to be doing a public education campaign. We're launching that campaign shortly. That campaign will include educational material, conversations, information to the public. We'll hoping to have a media campaign so that
mm,
people become more aware of what it means to say bribery. And at the end of this campaign, it is hoped that ordinary Jamaicans will actually buy in and start asking their members of parliament to pass this legislation. So it's a threefold thing. We're going to be giving this information as to what is bribery, why
mm,
it costs, who it affects, and why it's important to have this comprehensive legislation. Then we're going to move it and say to you, hey, do you know how you can participate? You can
mm.
do this by utilizing the tools that our sister NGO has provided. JAM
Jam.
provides digital tools for participation. We're
Yes.
saying participate. We're giving you the information to participate. We're going to be supported by JAM, utilizing their tools. They're coming up with new tools. They currently have one. And it takes nothing for you to go onto the JAM website and actually write a message to your member of parliament or to any member of parliament that you choose and say, look, I want to hear you in parliament on this anti-bribery legislation. Election time, we can almost put a pot on fire. That election is going to be called in a very short time. It means that our citizens can be asking those who come to knock on the doors, brother, sir, what is your position on the Anti-Bribery Act. Will you support it? If not, why? And you yourself can start asking these questions. We want to enable the electorate to properly, fairly, and strongly, stoutly ask our representatives to speak on this issue. We want to hear them. So we are effectively giving you this information and asking you to help us to lobby for this anti-bribery legislation. We know that what the public says matters. When the Member of Parliament for Trelawney, Marissa Dalrymple, was being brought back into the fold, our Prime Minister said, the people asked for it, so we can't do anything but respond to what the people asked for. No, I am saying, if that is the position, that's a great threshold for me. If the people ask for it, you cannot tell the people you ain't gonna have it. So let the people ask for this anti-bribery law, and they must deliver it, because that is what he has said he will do. Once we ask for it, he says he will provide it. Is what the people ask for, is what the people are going to get. And so I'm testing that. If it is that the majority of Jamaicans are saying, I'd like to play a role, I want to be able to do this, not just in my own private space, but I want a law now that makes sure say, may not have to pay nobody at the tax office. Those are public officials, but many times when you pay somebody in the tax office, they're not always public officials. It's somebody who knows somebody who will get something done to you. So yes, we can charge them for conspiracy, but wouldn't it matter if we could actually hold the person for bribery? Wouldn't it matter if we could hold the person for conflict of interest, nepotism, or cronyism? And so we want to have that dialogue. So the timeline for the legislation depends on how effective the people asking for it is. We also know that the government is very good at passing legislation quickly. So I have no doubt when they did it for the amendment for the DPP, it was done in like a Nicodemus in the night. So we know that legislation can be passed swiftly if they want to. So this means that it is a call for all Jamaicans. If you think having an anti-bribery legislation will be one of the first steps, it's not the only steps, it's not a panacea, it's not the end and be all of curing all ills, like with a necessity, cure everything. It's not that. What it means is that it gives us some leverage, and it starts the conversation as to what kind of laws we want to have. And it gives us an opportunity to create an environment by making sure that these things that are commonplace are no longer accepted as part of our discussion or part of our experience here in Jamaica.
So what we're saying then, and an answer to Michelle as well, is that there's a lot of public participation that is needed in this process for it to be enacted, and that is tapping into the members of parliament. The question is there an effective way? Okay, we got the Trelawney bit, which happened where the people call for the minister, the MP there to run. But the question you got to ask yourself, just because people call for a person to run, are they the right person to run based on certain complying with certain standards? I'm not going to go into that bit there, but I just want to say that is there an effective, or is it effective whereby the people in Jamaica lays with their members of parliament, and their members of parliament take these things to the house and act accordingly, or the MPs more operate on a partisan level?
So in real terms, still they do operate on a partisan level, but I'm not here to encourage the norm.
Yes.
I'm not here to tell you that's how it should be. I'm here to tell you how it can be. And it can be that as a people, they recognize that we hold the handle, that we demand this of our citizens. We demand this of our parliamentarians, that the citizens themselves want it. It's part of the course that we say that they form the party line, but aren't we over that now? Aren't we at the stage now as a Jamaican where you realize the party politics now work for none of we? Excuse my transition. But we realize it's not working. And we do have that responsibility. And that is part of what we have been trying to say over the last couple of months when we have this conversation about constitutional reform. I am empowered as a citizen to tell my member of parliament what I'd like you to do. If 10 of us from the constituency decide to do it, and we get bucketed by 20 more, and 50 more come out and say, Me agree. This is my concern. It does two things. One, it shows that the constituency is important, not just for when you want a vote, but that we are demanding communication with our member of parliament. And we expect that our member of parliament will take our interest to parliament. That's how the system ought to work. For years, it has been contorted into simply being a yes man mentality system
Mm.
where we must agree with the leader. No, we have the opportunity to change that. And I would like to think that most Jamaicans are tired of just being asked for a vote. And we would
Yes.
really want to see our members of parliament taking our views to parliament. And this will follow, I'm sure, on
Mm.
what other NGOs are doing. I know that Advocates Network and others are promoting, as well as NIA, a call for the recall legislation to be implemented. That
In,
as well is a legislation that empowers the citizenry, that
yeah.
allows us to ask for the member of parliament by way of a petition, whether by the citizens or by the EOJ, to have that member of parliament who is not performing to step aside. And you would do this after a year of the election have passed, but not within the last year of an election, not the election period. So we do
Mm.
have an opportunity to make a call for this. So we want, it's one of the things, look,
Yeah.
there's so many bits and pieces of legislation that you would want to be able to call for and to see it works. But this is one of those that I
Mm.
think pushes the citizenry to be part of the process. And the other things them can ask for it too. Not saying I just the bribery
Yeah.
act you want to ask for. If you believe that the recall is important, let's get it on. We've been asking for it too. But we
And that
have
is.
resources for
Mm.
a public education campaign as it relates to educating the public about what bribery is. And that's really what we're going to be undertaking within the next 6 to 12 months.
It is very important, and there's got to be, I would say, like a sort of tunnel vision in seeking such resolution for argument's sake, this bribery act, this constitution reform, because you just touched on the bit about recall, and also something which you said a while ago, which I always say, and Michelle always say this all the while. Michelle, if you can write what you always say, and the power is in the people's hand, and for people to actually recognize that the ministers, the prime minister, are actually chief servants of the people. But do the people, and I believe as a process of education and civics and so is being highlighted, for people to actually recognize, and like what you're saying, that there's power in your hands to actually transform Jamaica to the place that you want to be.
Well, I guess this is where we are at,
Mm.
Sil, and I'm going to say it as best as I
Mm.
can. You can't expect the people who benefit to offer change.
Wow.
The
Mm.
status quo benefits a few. Yes? Don't expect them to pass legislation that is going to affect them. We
Mm.
only have to look at how the Integrity Commission, which was passed by Parliament, has been
Yes.
castigated by the very same Parliament, only
Yes.
because the Integrity Commission is doing that which they were mandated to do.
Mm.
So we can't expect the people who have the power to make the change. It is the people who must make this change.
Yes.
Effective representation and effective change has always come from the bottom. The French Republic is a great example. You know, when you start to talk about how change came about, it didn't come about by
Mm.
educated people. It didn't come about by people who were able to talk themselves into a tizzy. It came about because the regular common man decides that him can't deal with this no more.
The Arab Spring, for argument's sake.
When we
Mm.
talk about the Arab Spring,
Mm.
you could look at the circumstances that gave that about a vendor being frustrated in a market
Yes.
was the impetus for starting something like that. We talk about the 1930s and the 1940s in Jamaica. We were one of the first set of people to have entire voting rights for man, woman, and everybody without property. This happened right here in Jamaica before it happened up north. So
Yes.
we have that power, and we've always had that power to improve our working conditions in the 30s and 40s when we decided that we can't work like this anymore. So we have proven that there is power in the people,
So
and
where
they
did it
know.
go? Where did it go then, Danielle? Where did it slip
We're
and
going to
slide?
have that conversation because we're always going to look at the complacency and how laws have been done and how we've subsumed ourselves into a particular political system because it works.
Yeah.
But this is where I will tell you,
Mm,
sometimes we just need to be reminded of what we can do. And one of the things we want to do in this awareness campaign is to bring the awareness to our regular Jamaicans, our colleagues, our relatives, and friends that you have that power. It's you
mm,
who decide the kind of Jamaica that you want, not our parliamentarians. And as we
yes.
slide into an election season, we have a great opportunity to not let them tell us what's on their manifesto, but to let us tell them what we would like to see on your manifesto. But here's the rub:
Yes.
we are now going to have to become more powerful in how we speak about what we want. Because when
Yes.
they tell us what we want, we now have to bring the specter of accountability to them, which is why we must ask them, with the short time they have, where will they stand on the power of recall? Now,
Yes.
remember, when our prime minister came to power, he promised us a fixed election date.
Yes.
He also promised us an
100
impeachment.
days, I believe, isn't it? Mm,
What have the people done about asking for that?
yes.
I understand victimization is real in Jamaica,
Yes.
but there has to come a time when country becomes more important than self.
You know,
And
they
we might
always say,
very
they
well
always,
be this
yes.
time.
They always say this season is a silly season, but I sort of change it because the silly season mentality sort of will get into people's mindset. I believe people should see this season as a very serious season, a very serious, powerful, and strategic season where people get off their behinds and really engage with the process. And as you said a while ago, it is not just about an election time or to vote, but the action and the process is continuous within the that tenure of that parliament or so, Daniel, which is so important, and which I do encourage people as well. But I want to just bring in this bit here.
I have an idea still. I'm sorry.
Go
Just
ahead,
because
go
you
ahead,
said something
please.
earlier,
And as we're
we're
having a
taking
conversation,
session.
yes, yes. Go ahead.
No, I know that many people don't want to vote, and there are people who say I'm not going out to vote. But I'd be
Mm,
curious, if you're not willing to vote for any of the parties, but you want to exercise your right, what harm would there be of writing on your ballot, we demand a recall legislation?
mm,
It would be interesting to see how many spoiled
yes.
ballots would have the name recall
Mm,
on it, just
mm.
because you want to demonstrate how effective you can be in part of an election. I'm just thinking out loud.
Let's just answer this question here from someone on TikTok. How can fixed election date grow the economy or give Jamaica more accountability in governance?
How can a fixed election give you more
Date
accountability? Well,
grow grow.
let's start from.
I didn't have to say it, but I just want to bring it up because it is a question somebody put out there.
All right. You
Mm.
want me to address that now?
Yeah, just say
A fixed
what.
election date would
Yes,
allow people to plan. Fixed election date also allows it not to be in the power of the prime minister for him to
yes,
be the only person who can decide when to call an election. Fixed
yes.
election dates help the economy because it also means that business persons can understand that elections are coming up and what preparations they need to make.
Mm,
It helps as well in terms of advocacy. It helps for people to know the strength of what it is that they're expecting from the election season. It also gives some surety to the
some
process,
certainty, yes, isn't it?
certainty
Certainty.
and
Yeah.
surety to the
Mm,
process as having a fixed election date, which means that it doesn't change. One of the
yeah.
biggest challenges we have to the person who wrote that is when you look at the Constitution, there are so many things that allow the Prime Minister to almost act like a demigod. And one
Mm,
of them is this election date. We can have this conversation. So I'll let you know. You can hop on over to Still, I'll give you one of the dates that we're going to be having this constitutional conversation, and we
yes.
can delve into the reason why a fixed election date is important and the advantages and disadvantages, which I won't be able to go into here because we are
Yes.
upon we have less than 15 minutes to go. But I'd love to
Yes,
have that
yes.
conversation, and that's a valid conversation to have. But it also ensures that one of the most certain things is that it gives us
Mm,
certainty in the process.
yeah. I think this may have been answered, but we can be very specific on this one here. Is like, what challenges do you anticipate in implementing or seeing this implementation and enforcing a bribery act in Jamaica?
Well, let's go to the implementation first. Before
Yeah.
you can get to enforcement, it has to become law. I
Yes.
suspect the biggest challenge we're going to have is
Yeah.
whether or not it will be supported by our parliamentarians.
Mm.
And until we jump that hurdle, nothing else matters. So
Yes.
the question is going to be whether or not it will be supported by parliamentarians. And a sub question is, will the majority of my Jamaican brothers and sisters agree with me that we need to
Mm.
have it? If a majority of my friends don't think it's appropriate and my relatives don't support it and ordinary Jamaicans don't believe in it, then our parliamentarians won't even consider it. If they
Yes.
do consider it and they do think it's important, then the challenge for us as Jamaicans would be to get our parliamentarians to support it.
Mm. And also that is very important because, like in the UK, when we have certain when I was involved with the APD trying to reduce the air passenger duty, and I was doing some lobby on behalf of the diaspora here in the UK. One of the things that we did was to get letters done and sent to your local MP. So a lot of letters were being sent to local MPs so that they have it there. So eventually they will say something in Parliament or so. The question is, there are different forms of lobbying, and do we encourage our Jamaicans to write to Parliament or parliamentarian, and will the parliamentarians act, you know,
I think
when
have examples of parliamentarians acting on the power of the people. I
yeah.
mentioned the part about Mr. Alrimple, but there have been other instances where the government has responded to public outcry. Early in the days of their leadership, you had the situation where they wanted to have 70 days before they release
Mm,
certain documents. That was really reduced because of public outcry. We had a situation where one summer we weren't going to have any festival songs, and the people them cry out and say, oh, you mean we're not gonna have festival song
yeah.
right here? And that was, changed. So there have been several situations where the public has cried out and the parliamentarians, the leadership of the government has been forced to recant. So we know it can happen. The ability to write letters, what we're trying to do now is to promote the tools that JAMP has, so that you don't even have to you don't have to do anything but go on the website and send a letter. Our poll
Yeah.
in 2023 from Don Allison indicated that a majority of Jamaicans were willing to write letters to the Gleaner to support a particular position,
Mm,
and they were willing to participate in public education campaigns. So we're giving them the public education campaign, which is part of what they've wanted, because Jamaicans always want information, and we're going to be providing them with that
yes.
credible information. Now, we also have the tools which will allow you to use your mobile phone, go onto your laptop, and send these letters to your parliamentarians. JAM keeps a track of the letters. So once the letters go, they are able to tell us how many letters have gone, what the letters were about, and what the response is, so we can hold them accountable. So as we go along, there are several ways that we can be part of the process. And that's really what we want to start doing. Letting Jamaicans understand that laws aren't made to speak to them. Laws
Mm,
can be made because you want these laws to speak to the generations and to build a Jamaica that you would like. In fact, you should be able to lobby and to call out your parliamentarians. And we want to create that landscape that they understand that it is not just following behind the coattails of a leader. It is now within the realm of you appreciating the coattails of the people who vote for you.
and where does the diaspora play a part in this whole thing in regards to international cooperation? You got international cooperation in different level, like we are with Transparency International, but like with the diaspora, there's those overseas playing support in Jamaica's anti-corruption efforts,
There's lots
include.
that they can do.
Mm,
I mean, you have diaspora people who have family and friends, and them tell them, "Look here, I want you to do this. This is happening. Go here." So
yes.
there are some events that are happening here that honestly, I would not have heard about until somebody from the diaspora sent it to me and said, oh, this is
Yes.
happening and you can go. The diaspora does a fantastic job in promoting these events. There is that part of the diaspora that is fervent in ensuring that we're a better place by promoting things that will ensure that we take corruption seriously. I think what you're doing on your show is
Yes.
fantastic. There are TikTokers. Well, I don't know how many TikTokers in the US know, but you had social media influencers who help to promote these great ideas. The diaspora comes in because right now, for some of the things that we're planning to do, we have
Yes.
a diaspora contact in Germany that's most willing to help us with our flyers and with creating the electronic space, and they're doing that
Yes.
for us. So there are multiple ways that this can happen. We have a diaspora contact looking to help us to raise funds to pay for venue or security. So there are so many things that can be done because you have that spectre. And let's be real, there are things that the diaspora can say that I can't say
Yes.
because
That
I
that.
is mindful that victimization is real. So there are things that I will not be able to speak
Mm.
about. I have to take some time to address some issues
Yes.
because I live here. The diaspora, like yourself, and I've said this to you several times, there are topics that you can speak about and you can give it 100%
Of
without
course.
editing. You can say what you have to say because guess what? Nobody not come for you under your bed.
Mm.
Nobody not gonna prevent you from getting a job. Nobody's gonna, and many Jamaicans feel that way because victimization,
Yes.
the effect of it is real. So
Yeah.
the diaspora can help in getting the message out. The diaspora can help in providing the leg service that we may need to support certain projects. And of course, you're rallying and lobbying. Many persons in the diaspora are in positions that they can lobby for certain
Yes.
things that we don't have the power to do. All we
Mm.
can do from where we stand is to tell you what we would like to see and to speak about it. So the diaspora is a powerful entity, and they're powerful not because of the resources that they have, but they're
Mm.
also powerful because of the influence that they can have on Jamaicans here. Many of us listen to our mothers overseas, they listen to our sisters,
Yes.
our brothers overseas, they listen to our husbands, our wives overseas, they listen to our siblings overseas, our cousins overseas. They have that kind of strong pull because we can't deny that here in Jamaica we still feel like anything foreign is still good. So
Mm.
if you come from foreign and you say it must have some authority.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. And I believe, as you said, there are many different areas of sections that we can talk on. But for tonight is the whole process of the role of the Bribery Act. And and in closing, of course, I'll ask you for your final word. Does the Bribery Act help to how can the Bribery Act help to address this whole integrity dilemma, which we have in Jamaica?
Integrity
Balance
looks
accountability with entitlement. Yes.
all right. So integrity is really getting to do the right thing the right way all the time.
Mm.
No
Mm.
magic words. We have our morals. Many of us go to church. It's just
Yes.
getting people to understand that we do the thing the right way all the time to ensure that things are, you get a job on merit, you encourage equity in the workplace and in decision making, and there's accountability and there's transparency. A bribery act forms part of the tool that would be needed to create that within our society. I keep saying it's not the sole panacea for
Yes.
changing behavior, but it sets a foundation and it strengthens our anti corruption framework. It will strengthen our national anti corruption strategy and it allows us to change our behavior in much the same way that the Road Traffic Act is currently doing. The Road Traffic Act has heavier fines, it creates a penalty, a strong penalty for using your phone on the road. It makes it clearer how it is that you're to act on the road. And so it changes behavior.
Yes.
Legislation changes behavior, and having an anti bribery legislation will do just the same thing. It will change behavior for the better. And if we promote it, we stand a very good chance of setting a foundation for the generations to come, where maybe in 30 years, corruption will not be accepted
Yes.
as a way of life in Jamaica.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on, Danielle, and for those who have been listening to this show, there'll be more discussions in regards to constitution reform. different legal areas. I know I've seen some comments here where some people are like saying this is like uh, some of the comments are not need to be mentioned. Like it's more superficial, you know. This is hairy fairy. We need to deal with local economics and things like that. But I believe very much, as you
So
say, that
if you're talking about the
sorry,
economy, bribery is
mm,
important to the economy. There's no point in us earning lots of money when we don't have a system in place to ensure that it's done on merit, that people who are doing it
yes,
the right way are able to participate in the economy. So if you
yes,
don't have, and every economy that is doing well,
mm,
every economy that is doing well focuses on having a bribery act. And may I just say something? And this is coming
yes,
from integrity perspective. It's very well and good for us to focus on the almighty dollar,
mm,
but morals are important. Doing things the right way competently are important. And
yes,
sometimes we earn much more if we're able to do things competently and the right way than always thinking that it's all about making a dollar. Making a
yes,
dollar is important, but it's not always the best results that we get from utilizing the dollar. Competency arising from integrity is also important. And I think I would encourage you to have a look at Dr. Minat's article in today's Gleaner, where he highlighted that so eloquently that it's
yes,
not always about the money.
yes.
Competency and integrity are also important to an economy.
And the point is creating a culture of accountability and transparency in Jamaica businesses and government institutions. That's what you're
So
saying
it's
in
not just
businesses
for
as well.
it's not just for the government, it's for all
Yes,
of us. It's all of we involved in making Jamaica a better place.
because is that you? Is that they're saying you? Is that your
Mm.
phone?
That's all right.
Yes, because we all know that we can, if we have a brethren that we went to school with, we can always tap on them into different public spaces and try to get something done. And these are things which need to be stopped in a sense.
But we can look at KSAC and the
Yes,
municipalities and what is happening there. And then you
yes,
appreciate that if you're able to pay somebody and get these nice grand structures up, which are symbols of being able to have money and make money, but they're not done the right way, then it
mm,
means that the people who buy them will be at a loss. The people who live in
yes,
them will be at a loss because it may very well be not up to standard. So you may be able to build the structure and show how much money you've been able to earn or how much money exists. But if it's not
mm,
done the right way, then there are a plethora of consequences that can flow from that.
yes, yes. Thank you for. And Michelle, it is Corruption Prevention Act, isn't it? That's what it is. She was asking what is the name again of anti-corruption. Does she?
Oh, well, I
Does she
don't know if
mean?
she's referring to that or she's talking about the anti bribery legislation that we're asking
Okay.
for.
Anti-bribery is what we're talking about, a proposal, Michelle. But the Corruption Prevention Act is what is presently in play in Jamaica. Daniel, any last word before we go?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share. And I look
Yes,
forward to further ideas and suggestions from you as it relates
yes,
to how we can make Jamaica a better place. The work that
yes,
you're doing is very encouraging to our listeners, to our viewers. Thank you for the support. And always remember, this
yes,
fight is not a sprint, it's a
yes.
marathon, it's a
Mm,
relay. And so we do our part so that the next part of the generation can do theirs. And if you see something wrong, there's no point in quarreling about it. We just have to put our hands and hearts in it and just try
mm,
to make it right. Because we all live here. And if you don't live here, you have an interest with your heart
yes,
full in Jamaica.
definitely. Daniel Archer, thank you so much, Principal Director
Blessings.
of National Integrity Action. All the best and peace out. And
Likewise. Have
keep the
fun.
sunshine in Jamaica and send it over to us if you can, if you don't mind.
You don't want it. Remember, it's coming from Manchester.
Okay, okay. Well, it can reroute it through Ochoris if anything like that.
Mm-mm. 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 Yeah, I sent it straight to you from Manchester.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our
I'm
personal.
sure you appreciate it now. It don't matter where it come from. Some Java sunshine.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. Peace
Bye.
out. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining tonight for this very interesting discussion. To keep it very tight, the role of a bribery act in Jamaica to fight corruption in Jamaica. I just want to say, just to let you know that Marcus Garvey, if anyone has been following, I believe the President Biden. Where is it? There it is. Um, Biden pardons black leader who inspired future activists. So Marcus Garvey was pardoned. So credits to Biden. I thought Barack Obama would have done that. And secondly, I just got someone just mentioned that TikTok is back in America. Not sure if that is, but that's what Michelle is actually saying, that TikTok is back in Jamaica as well. But they say if you deleted the app, you might lose it or so. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining and thank those who are watching on Instagram, those on Facebook, those on YouTube, and those on Instagram. Remember to like and subscribe to the show and Dialogue That Matters. You can always watch the replay or listen to the replay on Spotify, um, Anchor, Apple as well. You can listen to the audio version of this discussion, which I'll be posting very shortly. So have a good evening this Sunday evening and all the best and peace out. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you everyone, especially those on TikTok as well. Thank you. Bye bye.